Renee, your Ascension Guide. And I'm here with a very long-term friend of mine named Ann Taylor. And today is April 7th of 2013. And as we got together today to share about our lives and the experiences that we've been having on the pathway of ascension, we thought today we'd like to record and memorialize our conversation for our families of lightworkers and starseeds, as these are definitely confusing times. And today, as Ann and I are talking about the various things that we're observing, we wanted to just allow our starseed family to also listen in on some real talk, some real experiences about what we're all undergoing at this time on an ascending planet Earth. So Ann is a fellow traveler on the path. We've been great friends undergoing the challenges of spiritual ascension through all of the different levels of exploring consciousness and awakening through our own practice. She's a spiritual advisor and psychic medium. Ann, how are you today, and what has been your feelings lately about what you've been experiencing?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. Well, I jokingly refer to it as the Cuisinart of life. As we've been talking lately, it's been full-on focus, energy, stay connected, stay in spiritual consciousness every moment of every day. You know, there's no rest for the weary, as they say. And I'm excited and thrilled and happy to be here, both here with you today and here on the planet, because we are all on this path together. And as we speak to each other, I know we're speaking to our spiritual family around the globe with love and admiration for everyone's participation and gratitude for everyone's presence here with us. I think it's just fun to chat about some of the experiences that we've been sharing and observing in ourselves and each other and other folks that we know about how challenging it is to stay in focus, to stay in our spiritual awareness, to stay in our God-Goddess consciousness while we are living in what we refer to as the third dimensional or 3D world, because the world has a lot of requirements and we have to interact with it. And at the same time, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, so we are connected to higher frequencies of knowledge, information, energy, and love, if you will. Great levels of each of those. And yet we have to participate in the daily world. You know, you still have to get your kids to school. You still have to, make sure, the groceries get done and the cars get done and the blah, 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 the stuff that's the mundane, so to speak. And so we really need to understand how to be pragmatic and practical in our daily lives so that we can retain our consciousness of who we are at every moment, and we can stay calm and stay focused and resist any of the chaos and drama of the outer world while we're still moving in our spiritual bodies through every single life activity. So that's what I've been focusing on lately. And it gets really challenging.
It's very challenging. I would agree that, my particular perception has been as an awakened starseed, meaning that I have come from another time and space to participate in consciousness during this end times on planet Earth. And one of my particular roles here is to really study what mind control is and to understand more about the architecture behind mind control, what is creating the source of thought forms that we have, belief systems that we have that really shape the culture of what it is to be a man and woman on planet Earth at this time. Here we are in the United States. We're in the Los Angeles area at the moment. There's a lot of global strife, certainly, that is impacting everyone on this planet, no matter what culture or country you're in. There's certainly a lot of stress and intensity pressurizing us to transform and adapt into a new way of life, into a new belief system, into addressing social problems that encompass so many different levels of the breakdown in society, where these particular behaviors, attitudes, beliefs in our global culture or in our United States culture, no matter from what point of view we're talking, we're looking at behaviors that are incredibly destructive to the human heart, to the human soul, the human creative process. And I always like to ask the question, who is benefiting from that? Because it's really not the human race. If we start to actually look at what is shaping our thoughts, our beliefs, our ideas in our day-to-day life, how the change starts within us. And I really feel that this is especially important at this time, is really looking at within the self, starting with the self, because the change begins with us first, always. And it's important too, that we start at home, within our own heart, our own families, our own relationships, because they have so much to teach us in terms of our own spiritual and emotional development, because there's very much a relationship to emotional development and spiritual development. And I think that's very important. You don't have to be a quote-unquote spiritual being, whatever that is, in terms of all of the labels of what we may think that is from an ego filter level. What is it to be spiritual? What we really want to talk about is, what is it to be a true human? A real human being, a true human being, a human being that wants to support humanitarian values, life-affirming values, that we want to support each other as a race of beings at that level. Where do we start? How do we incorporate that in our life every day? And how do we recognize negative behaviors or quote-unquote alien thoughts as those that know me? In the Energetic Synthesis website, of course, and my body of work of studying mind control on planet Earth has involved a deep descension into the rabbit hole. And that rabbit hole has been a direct experience of actually viewing architecture in planet Earth that is designed to mind control human beings. And this is something, of course, I'm very passionate in helping people to become more aware of these constructs, of these artifices, of these quote-unquote frequency fences that are ultimately designed to suppress our consciousness, to suppress our belief systems or ideas of who we think we are as a being, to really limit us as a species, as a race, and to be aware of that so that we can start within ourselves to really identify how negative thoughts or behaviors really impact us and how we can shift and transform that in our day-to-day life at every moment, no matter what we're doing. We're in a 3D type of job where, our main job is to be a mother to children, or whatever we're doing in the world, we apply this understanding right now in this moment. How can we be a love-based, life-affirming race that appreciates and wants to expand humanitarian activities, things that support human beings to be human beings? We're not living on a planet that allows us to do that. And there's multiple things we could talk about. And just looking at the world today, it's all right out there, right in plain sight. So
you bring up a very interesting point, multiple points. I totally admire and respect the amazing amount of work that you do and the information which you download, which is astounding, and anybody who's visited your website will understand what I'm speaking about. But one of the things that you said that struck me is one of the tools that we have to deal with everything you just outlined is to stay very focused in the present moment. That is one of the great skill sets that we need to understand, adopt, and expand in our repertoire of tools to survive and thrive on the planet. Staying in the present moment is a very challenging thing to do because most of us either revert to the past or run into the future. Staying in the present moment helps us to focus. As you said earlier, we don't distinguish between being a human and being spiritual. It's all one thing. We are spiritual beings in human bodies, and that's just the way life is. And everything that we do is spiritual. in some consciousness. It has frequency, it has energy, it has meaning, it has motion, it has all those things. What we want to do and learn and perfect is to stay in the present moment, so that as we are going through these changing times, and these are changing times, one of the things that we talk about and I laugh about, I say I'm reading the contract next time because I'm not sure I'm coming back to this planet in this mode. These are very transformational times, as everyone knows, and we are escalating and moving into a higher frequency. Should we choose to do so? We have choice. We have conscious choice. There are beings who will choose not to do so, and there are beings who will choose very definitively to move in the direction of higher consciousness. As we do that, one of the things that is very, very necessary is to stay focused in the present moment, to experience everything we experience with consciousness, and to have very clear choice about what we decide to experience. It's a very, very challenging exercise to do that on a daily basis. We all are working, and I do that every day myself. Just stay present, stay focused. What do I need to do now? What is it I need to care for now? What is my responsibility now? And of course we think about the future and we think about the past, but what's in front of me to do? I've joked for a long time about just do what is in front of you, because everything else will evolve from there. And especially these days, and you certainly are the expert in some of the frequency shifts that we're talking about, especially these days, things change so rapidly. We make plans, and then the plans change immediately. We think we're going to do one thing, and no, that's not what's happening at all. We're doing something else that we didn't understand or plan for at all. But it evolves very seamlessly and effortlessly, whereas if we try to push things, or try to control things, or try to make things happen in what I call the old paradigm, nothing works. And that's one of the key factors we can tell in our lives when we're on, quote unquote, the path, or not on the path, as it were, and that's simply a frequency. What we're referring to here about a path is a frequency. Are you operating in a frequency of love? Because there's really love and that consciousness, and there's fear, and there's many, many levels in between, but those are the two polarities. Are we operating in a field of love? If we are, things begin to fall together. If we are not, things begin to fall apart. And that's a very telltale factor. Is your life working? No? Well, perhaps it needs to be looked at from a different point of view. And then one has to ask, what do I want to know about the level of the universe? How much do I want to understand about galactic architecture, for instance? How much do I really want to understand and know? How responsible do I want to be for that knowledge? And each of us has a choice in that. You know, there are those of us who are doing different levels of work on the planet. And everybody's work is important. Everybody doesn't have to be doing something that's quote unquote spiritual, because everything is spiritual. You know, I don't care what career or what job or what energy you have. It all matters, and it all works together in the architecture. So we have to decide, how responsible are we? How responsible can we be? And how responsible do we wish to be in our conscious choices?
I totally agree with you. And, you know, certainly one of the things that I have noticed, because both of us are privy to, you know, in my case, many emails or discussions in community, being aware of the people around us in the environment, the lightworker family, the biological family, you know, all the different levels of where you see people operating in their day-to-day life. And I would say the thing that is the most burdened on my heart is just seeing how much pain and confusion so many people are enduring at this time. And that's why, you know, as well, I know that everyone has to really come to what resonates in their own heart in the moment. But what I feel has really occurred to planet Earth is such a disservice to planet Earth and disservice to human beings in being able to access the common knowledge of our own spiritual consciousness and to give us tools or the memory. Again, once we are aligned to certain parts of that knowledge or awareness, it starts to come online where we go, oh, this is familiar. I remember this. We don't necessarily have a language and a context for it. And so that this is really as well why I started working with energetic synthesis was to be able to bring that information, even though some of it is highly technical, because what I learned in the process of the personal spiritual evolution was that once I had context and I understood what was happening at a certain level, again, it's just scratching the surface of something so vast, but the context I have, and again, the context I feel that the energetic synthesis information has given towards many in the community is something to understand how to apply what's happening in these challenges in our day-to-day life, that if we don't have context, such as an evolutionary context for our spiritual purpose, and that everybody has that, no one is on this planet without exception, without having some kind of auric consciousness body that has an energy signature, that has a blueprint, that has a purpose here. If you don't know who you are as a spiritual being, if you don't know what your blueprint is, meaning like what you came here to do and express, what's a part of your core essence, if you don't know how to contact that, that basically means you're disconnected from your core truth and your core essence. And guess what? That makes you miserable. Because anytime we're disconnected from our spiritual truth and our soul, we're so sad, we're so depressed, and no wonder. So we have so many people, and again, many on the light working path that are still really struggling with what in the heck is going on here. And this is why I really feel, even though I know my information isn't altogether popular, because I'm really in your face with looking at things that are ugly. And that is because I am a firm believer that if we don't register it, if we don't see it, this type of consciousness, the dark consciousness, will manipulate and trick us into believing something that is false, and we will be misguided in that particular alignment. And that's where so many light workers, so many fifth dimensional ascension people are spinning out in the confusion of that context without having any clue that they're being manipulated, they're being tricked by moving in these cycles of confusion, of fear, of whatever these motivations are that are coming from ego levels of understanding what's happening to our planet. A lot of what we're talking about is sensory feeling, the feeling intuitive level of being able to intuitively feel things and learn how to trust that intuition in your own heart and being, and slowly choose your authority. Is your authority the ego, the human world, or is it your spiritual self? Your core spiritual being is that which leads you to peace and fulfillment and connection with all things. You will never be steered wrong by your spirit. You will be steered wrong by your mind. If you haven't learned how to discipline your mind, if you haven't learned to control ego fears, if you haven't learned to identify desires that are replacing spiritual aspiration, because I see that a lot. There's such a confusion between a aspiration to do something, like I have this aspiration, I need to go and do this, versus inspiration, something that's coming from within you that needs to be expressed naturally. And so a lot of the times there's big confusion. The ego will push you to aspiration. The more you're in aspiration, and there's also spiritual aspiration, it will keep you in the cycle of the astral debris, the astral level of desire, which is propelling you for whatever the reason is. First level is really, I think, the larger context of ascension as an evolutionary journey on our planet, that we are all a part, no matter what level of awareness we're participating at this time. We're all here together doing this at whatever level. The suffering, the pain, and confusion is incredibly high on our planet, and there are beings like you and I know, that are more sensitive to feeling that we can feel the pain in the planetary body. We can feel the pain in people. That is really why I'm recording this today, because the pain and confusion and the suffering in the people around me is beyond anything I've ever experienced until this point. Meaning, people, there's always been this issue on planet Earth, of course. But because of this change, because of the frequency shift, so many people are so confused. And the ascension information, the evolutionary context is being withheld. So we have so many people literally in the dark, being manipulated by the dark, not being given proper context tools, and being able to apply a practical spirituality to their day-to-day life, and be able to incorporate that into having more peace and more balance with the levels of stress that people are pressurized in today, which again, it's intense. The pressure people are under right now it's pretty wild.
It may be unprecedented.
It feels like it.
In what we know of history, it is definitely intense. And I think you touched on a very deep topic about suffering. There are people suffering around the planet who don't understand what's going on, who are confused, who do seek guidance, and who do deserve healing energies. And we obviously think about those folks every day, and we send light and energy to that. There are so many different levels to approach what you've just been addressing. One can get into what I consider to be full-blown ascension consciousness and really understand the architecture and the galactic levels of what's going on here on this planet, as well as multiple galaxies and dimensions of spirit. And one can stay in the daily life and try to figure out how to just make that work. All of those are acceptable and fine. It's wherever one is at the moment and whatever one chooses consciously to deal with. So, you don't have to be an ascension expert to participate in life. Although it helps to understand, as you said, it helps to understand the context of what is really happening in the planet right now. I mean, this planet is evolving. This planet is coming spiritually home. This planet is coming into cosmic consciousness, and it couldn't happen at a more perfect time because it's been designed this way. There are spiritual frequencies that have been in alignment for eons to allow this transformation to happen at this time. And so people are waking up around the planet on a cellular level, on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, if you will. They're all awakening, and they're looking for information. And, I call Lisa the download queen because she downloads so much fabulous information about the planetary architecture and what's occurring in our cosmos. My work is focused a little bit more on emotional healing and a more personal level for people to develop tools so that they can cope with the environment in which we find ourselves. So both of these things are important simultaneously. And I think people are starting to understand that they need to develop spiritual tools and cosmic tools, if you will, to move forward in life or move expansively in life through multiple dimensions of awareness and literally come home to ourselves, to our God consciousness, because, as you said, we are God. We are all God. Everything is God. Everything is that consciousness, God, goddess, if you will. We don't want to leave the feminine aspect out of it because there's a masculine and a feminine energy to everything. We seem to be on a planet that has polarity, and it's a binary planet. Things are divided into twos. We seem to have some sort of matching polarities here, and that's an interesting experience. It doesn't happen everywhere in the galaxies. They're very different dimensions and different emanations of life forms. But we are one which is polarized. And some of that polarity is challenging to deal with, and some of it's quite blessed and lovely and great fun. I'll leave the challenges descriptions up to you, Lisa. I deal with what I consider to be the pragmatic tools. How do we get through daily life? What do we do with this information? What is the purpose of this information? The purpose of this information is to understand the environment in which we find ourselves, that everything we do has impact. Everything we do radiates a certain frequency in the planetary structure. Everything we do has, if you will, a karmic implication. It has an auric field. It has an energy signature, if you will. And what matters is that we get very aware of this. What matters is that we start to understand this so that we're not operating in the dark or in a vacuum. And for many, many years, I think there's been a belief, and it's understandable with our sense of history, there's been a belief that this is all we know, or maybe this is all there is, or, we're kind of in a vacuum, or are we hanging out here in this little third rock from the sun by ourselves or whatever. It's like, no, we're not. There's a lot of information and beings here.
That's a great segue into really just talking matter-of-factly about extra-dimensional entities, other life forms. I know that a lot of the times if I'm exposed to information on YouTube or someone sends me something in email, I always notice there's not a lot of great information either discussing extraterrestrials and, there's all kinds of movements, the ancient alien movement, the, understanding the reptilian movement, what's happening on planet Earth and the control of the reptilians. And this stuff seems to be sensationalized. There's a lot of spin doctoring, both for negative and for sensationalistic purposes that, to be honest, is really, for me, a disservice to humanity. I think both of us here know fully, without question, we're not alone in this universe. We're sharing a massive space with many other types of life forms. The issue for humanity at this time is that we are not briefed on these life forms. In fact, this is a hidden agenda, of course, because those very beings that do not want us to know that there is other life then have more leverage in manipulation and control of the human race. And this is something, of course, there's no doubt in my heart that I feel that is a violation spiritually for the beings on this planet. The beings on this planet deserve something so much better than this, to be aware that, yes, indeed, there are many other races involved in the seeding of planet Earth, in the affairs of planet Earth. Ancient alien movement talks about they were here thousands of years ago. Well, they never left. They've always been here. So we need to just get that out on the table and say factually, yes, they're abducting people on planet Earth when they shouldn't be. Yes, they're mind controlling people and implanting them with implants when they shouldn't be. And there's all kinds of behaviors and actions that are being propagated and perpetrated, quite frankly, against humanity in a predator way to control and suppress human beings. And this is factual. This isn't something that we need to be woo-woo about or paranormal about. Nope, it's happening. It's factual. This is the way it is. There's nothing to sensationalize about it, and there's nothing to actually be in terror of either. It's understanding, again, like you said, the circumstances of which we're dealing with on planet Earth today. If we are informed of these things, then we are more equipped to make intelligent decisions for ourselves and our family members. Again, knowledge protects while ignorance harms. We have a lot of ignorance on planet Earth, and this has absolutely nothing to do with humanity's IQ. It is the social structure that is purposely in place to create automatons and robots and zombies that are so stressed out in obligations and being, again, spun out of control by all these things that we're told we have to do. We have to go make money. We got to pay our credit cards. We got to put our kids through private school, or whatever these goals are that we're given. Who gave them to us? Why are we doing this? This is all about, again, the reevaluation of what is truly important. What is truly our priority as a being, as a human being, not only for ourselves, but our family, our communities, the planet at large. We're going to have to start seriously look at the consequences of the actions of what's happening in the outer world today. Not from a fear base, but understanding, again, it's not the gods from space or the extraterrestrials that are going to save anybody. It's human beings. It's here. It's right now. It's you and I having this discussion, trying to make changes in just emanating that example and sharing that with those people that resonate with this information and want to participate at some level. I think humanity, most of humanity, has a sense of heart and desires to live in a peaceful, loving environment or an abundant environment. There are people that always talk about, well, we need, the war and the bloodshed so that we have tension and polarity. And I think that, again, is a part of the dark control. There's nothing wrong with polarity, but the absolute torture, genocide, victimization, pedophilia, child slavery, when we look at the millions of people on planet Earth that are enslaved today, the statistics known, by the slavery councils, the beings, the UN councils that actually measure this. Today on planet Earth, there are more slaves than ever. And that's the 3D accounting. I know this from the spiritual level because we're on a planet that's imprisoned by a frequency fence, and we're trying to make the change to go beyond these particular suppressions that have been in place. But to really think about that, I think, is something that's hard mentally. Most people don't realize that the whole planet is enslaved. Now, as we realize that there are more people today that are enslaved on the planet than ever, and until we address this fact, when we understand group consciousness is a part of a larger whole, our planet will never be free until we actually address the multiple billions of people, multiple millions of people that are being operated under a mind control enslavement that is really designed by an anti-life system, meaning something that's designed to harm humanity, something that's designed to be destructive to the human soul, to the human creative spirit, to human advancement. That alone, in fact, our technology advancement, our scientific discoveries have been significantly suppressed. Also, to keep a particular belief system in place, which is much more important from the controller point of view than developing humanitarian objectives, is really to keep the control in the lid of suppressing humanity.
And the antidote to all of this is consciousness.
Absolutely.
The antidote is unification of the spiritual consciousness amongst all of us, so that we know that we're moving, living, and breathing in the highest frequency possible, which I believe we talked a moment ago about the frequency of love. When you're in the frequency of love, which is literally a frequency, everything is in the light. Everything is transparent, because that frequency is a very high vibration. It's a very high wavelength. Any darkness or any shadow does not exist in that frequency. However, we have to move in unification into that frequency, so everyone comes together. We all work in mass to bring forth that consciousness to the planet. And it is a global spiritual family that will do that. That is why everybody's here on the planet now, because we are aiding in that transformational consciousness. As we evolve our own souls individually, which we are doing, each and every one of us, as we evolve our own souls, we also evolve the planetary consciousness. We unify the planetary field. We raise the frequency. We literally raise the vibration. You know, we've been talking about vibrations for years.
Yes.
You know, on the wavelength, right? It's like, it's real. It's very real, this stuff. We are on a frequency. We are on a vibration. It is a wavelength, and we want to be on the highest one we can find. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really important. So for each individual, myself, you, Lisa, all of us, for each individual to maintain the highest consciousness possible at all times completely helps to heal the planet and to move into a higher frequency of transformational awareness so that we can take this planet home, because that is the goal. The goal is to bring this planetary system into consciousness and higher alignment at this time in the galaxy. It needs to be there. So on a very personal, individual basis, we do everything we can every day to make our lives better, to work from a frequency of love, peace, tranquility, and harmony, and to unify the field around the globe, and to bring into awareness that which does not vibrate at the same rate. And the way we're going to heal the entire thing is to maintain that consistently, consciously, and by choice.
I think a lot of us in the Lightworking Starseed family, there's no doubt that the bar has been raised to another level. In the last 3 months, there's been a lot of changes in the planetary core, the Earth core itself. From my speak, it's definitely a change in the architecture and what's been hosting this planet. And so this, again, is amazing progress in understanding what crystal star consciousness is as a consciousness of love. Certainly when we talk about, being spiritual, we can interchange that word spiritual with energetic. Just understanding as well that spiritual is energetic. When people go, well, what does it mean to be spiritual? You can come back to an understanding that there's actually very much a science of spirit, a science of ascension, and understanding that everything is energetic, everything is vibrational and has either resonance or dissonance. Beauty that we see on planet Earth is certainly an orchestra of various frequencies that resonate in harmony, and some do a little bit more than others. And that is really the fantastic part of planet Earth, is the variation that is here at this time. But also, we have some interesting dynamics where we have players that are extradimensional that also influence a lot of humanity's direction. And until we start to raise our vibration and start to be conscious, participating with our own thoughts, participating with our own actions, being responsible for ourselves at that level, it's definitely true that the spiritual maturity, the requirement for that, is becoming more elevated in terms of, I'm noticing this is a time where there's really a split of the wheat from the chaff. If you've not really done your homework, meaning every single one of us, no one gets away from this, every one of us has to come into clarity with where our pain is, where our fears are, to be in the conscious presence of the now moment, because that's where the God consciousness is, where the divine synchronicities are in our life. They're not in the past, they're not in the future, they're here right now. So bringing ourselves into the now moment, there are many of us that are pretty developed at that. I noticed in the community, there's certainly been a lot of us in the seasoned light workers that have really been able to maintain that consciousness, but it's very different from the 3D level, meaning the people that are maybe not accelerated at that level quite yet, are not aware of ascension. When you speak to someone who's really involved in linear thought and a point A to point B kind of person, meaning I'm going from here to here, this doesn't exist for us anymore. There is no more. Exactly. The world is entirely circular. It's in the now moment. And that doesn't mean we're flake either, because that also happens a lot in the lightworking community, where they go, well, I can't commit to a time because I can't be there at exactly this time. But I've noticed, when you are in divine alignment, and this is with any kind of task, whether it's a material task, whether it's doing your taxes, whether it's, something that you have to reply or respond to as a responsible human being, no matter what your choices are and what you're living in your day-to-day life. These are matters that we have to handle. With any kind of task, whether it's a material task, whether it's doing your taxes, whether it's, something that you have to reply or respond to as a responsible human being, no matter what your choices are and what you're living in your day-to-day life. These are matters that we have to handle. We can't just ignore it because we don't want to deal with it because we're a quote-unquote spiritual person. So, we all know that drill, right? And that's a part of the, I think, integrated human. We're becoming integrated beings and learning how to bring this consciousness, this energy, this spiritual body intelligence into the embodiment of everyday waking life.
Yes.
It's a part of us. It's not compartmentalized. It's not, oh, my spirituality is over here and I practice it from 8 a.m. till 10 a.m. while I meditate, and then I go to work. This world does not exist. There's no toe in, toe out anymore. You're either no more on the fence. If you were on the fence, you're getting pushed really hard right now to make a commitment and get in there feet first.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, and some of the guidelines or the barometers that can be used to assess our place and how we're doing is what we call resonance. Do you resonate with that? Does it feel authentic and organic to your being? Does it come from your heart energy? Is there a frequency that feels like love? Are you magnetically attracted to that energy, and does it feel in right action for you? These are pragmatic, daily, simple things that we can check out in our own being. Resonance is really important. Frequency is very palpable. We can look into our own bodies and say, well, what does my heart chakra feel like? What does my solar plexus chakra feel like? Am I vibrating at a rate that feels consistent through my being? Do I feel in harmony, or does something feel out of place? Do I want to do that? Am I drawn to that? Or does this feel chaotic and out of resonance for me. And certainly, as we were discussing earlier, it's imperative to do the emotional work on an individual level. We have to understand what our ego reacts to. And what is our ego? Our ego is just trying to protect us and defend us and keep the status quo, and we have to put it in harmony with divine service. We have to put it in the place that it needs to be to do its specific job and move into a greater consciousness of what is good for everyone. That is, what is good for you, what is good for me, and what is good for us together in a harmonic resonance that vibrates at the frequency we choose to be, which is spiritual consciousness. And you're indeed so correct. There is no distinction between inner and outer. It is all one harmonic frequency. It is all one vibrational field, and everything is transparent. And so we want to come from a place that feels stable, loving, and clear. I joke around and just say, just show up and do what's in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so simple,
Yeah.
Show up and do what's in front of you, and always have to do the right thing for the highest good of all concerned at this point in time.
Exactly.
And with those criteria, right action opens, and we do what we need to do, and we are led to the next right action.
Absolutely.
Jung talked about it as being synchronicity. It's absolutely synchronous, and it's on a very high level. So we are all evolving emotionally, spiritually, harmonically to a frequency that is surrounding and becoming the new planetary structure, which is really exciting. And we're doing it consciously because we have to do it from a place of total awareness.
Yes.
We're not in the dream state anymore. And, you and I both know when you've been off the planet or seen the planet from a different perspective, or had encounters or communications or experiences where we see that we are certainly one tiny piece of a very large, multi-layered system of universal systems.
Yes.
Then we begin to understand this is the task at hand, and it's got a great deal of beauty. It's got a core of love. There is everything to celebrate here. And at the same time, it's challenging and requires our full attention.
I would really say, too, in agreement with that conscious participation, this is really a time where we have to participate with ourselves. Mm-hmm. There's a consequence for not participating, and I think that's the suffering. Yeah. If you're really not clear about your contents, who you are, the essence, the true core of who you are, there's a lot of suffering involved. Truly, it is our responsibility today to really feel, as you said, the resonance. I really notice, I think, especially in the earlier stages of spiritual awakening, probably some of the most difficult parts in the skill set is really getting beyond good or bad.
Yes.
Going, yes, this is good and this is bad, when it really does come down to resonance. So what we really want to get away from is correcting our thoughts of good or bad. When we're aware of them in the moment, when we have triggers that are happening, things that make us feel good or bad, that we refrain from labeling those things immediately, which is generally our knee-jerk reaction, because that's what we've been programmed to do, is to say this is good and this is bad. This is coming from ego judgment, and anytime we go into that state, we're going to suffer. Eventually. There's no ins or outs of that one, meaning that the only way you're going to go is into the suffering realm if you go into a good or a bad state of consciousness, which is judgment. So going beyond judgment is discernment, which is resonance. So when we talk about how do we discern these things, because I also see in the New Age this sort of idea that, everything's really good and it's a lot of rainbows and butterflies and we're all going to be fine. And I also find that that's not quite it either. We have to incorporate a love consciousness and be aware, but discernment allows us to have an accurate assessment of what we're dealing with in the moment. And usually I see those folks which may be all in their heart, but they're missing a point of an accurate assessment of what we're really undergoing at this time. And usually, too, I see that those folks are parasitic or vampiric. They usually have a lot of entities working them from the astral plane because they're unwilling to look at the shadow, unwilling to address anything but rose-colored glasses and it's all this way or whatever. And I really think that's not quite in balance either. We've got to have an accurate assessment of the reality because that's a fantasy world. And in order to undergo ascension, we talked about so many times the challenges, the interference that we undergo repeatedly. This is another thing that I feel needs to be addressed. I know in the earlier years when I developed a psychic self-defense series, I received a lot of criticism from fellow lightworkers that said, why are you talking about this negative stuff? And why are you doing this? And I thought, we're getting attacked almost daily, and you're not going to talk about this as an event. So it's something in understanding context of what's happening on planet Earth and understanding it just is what it is and being able to discern it. We have more tools in becoming integrated and balanced and being able to see what's in front of us. Because a lot of what I notice also that really confuses people is they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know why this relationship is here. They don't know why they're in this job. They don't know why whatever the circumstance is. And they're so confused by it that the confusion breeds dark infiltration. Anytime we're vague or ambiguous or we're confused, there are dark spins of energy, which are impersonal and they can be personal, meaning that they can be a force, there's the world of force of dark manipulation, or they can be actually entities that are manipulating this type of spin in terms of the more confusion, more chaos, because the dark will always use divide and conquer mentality, and it will always capitalize on what is hidden. It will try to create lies and deception, and through the lies and deception, it will try to spin out fear. And once we're in that state, we can't see anything. We don't know what resonance is. We don't have any discernment from this state, and that's, again, being gripped by interference or dark manipulation. So this is why this context, I think, is really important, is that, yes, we need to hold the highest frequency of love vibration. At the same time, be apprised and informed of the events on planet Earth so that we can be more informed and equipped when we're dealing with some very complicated situations, because life on planet Earth right now is not that simple. No matter in my simple little life, which again is very peaceful, and I'm incredibly grateful for the state of being that I have, in seeing just what my simple life, the complexity of dealing with the personalities and the bureaucratics and the, whatever it is that we have to deal with, our lives, what we deal with, it's incredible. The things that come to bear upon our simple little lifestyle. This is the tool to be equipped in how do we address all of these things that are coming at us at 360 degrees. It's like being an energetic kung fu master, How do you hold neutral and be in that perfect balance, the center within yourself where you can be the peace inside the chaos that's around you? And that's really, I think, the skill set that is required at this time for all of us to really learn how do we get in that place where we are in our peace, in our center, no matter what's going on on the outside.
Totally. That's the requirement. That is the absolute requirement for what's going on now. And you mentioned discernment. That's a very important tool, is the ability to recognize and acknowledge what a situation, person, place, or thing is without the, as you said, the polarity of the good, bad. I'm not making a judgment about it. I'm making a discernment about it. I choose not to go in that direction. That does not work for me. It does not resonate with my frequency. I will remove myself from that arena for whatever reason, in whatever manner. I have the discernment to look at that and say, no, I choose not that. I choose another or something else. So it's a very important tool. And then, as you said, to do the emotional work, to get very clear on what the triggers are. What am I triggered by? What can sneak up on me and trigger me that I might not have healed in myself? And how does that work? And then at what place do I fall into chaos, fear, and disruption? Anytime we find ourselves in a state of fear about anything, we can know that A, we've been triggered emotionally, and B, it's illusional, because fear is untruth. So we want to develop the tools where we can recognize the frequencies and the resonance and then move into... Now, that doesn't mean that you can maintain the status quo at all times, because sometimes that means everything's going to radically shift. Everything in our lives is going to change. We're going to be required at some level to do something new, something unfamiliar, something we don't know about. Structures are going to change. That's part of the inherent transformational shift that is occurring on the planet at this time. Everything is in change and flux. Structure, and we see this. Look at all the structures.
Well, we
that are
laugh.
changing.
We laugh all the time about being comfortable in that, right?
Oh, yeah.
How absolutely hilarious it is that we're so required to be spontaneous always and adaptable to a second. It's you thought it was this way. Nope. You're making a course correction.
180 degrees different than you thought it was, but here you are, and it's all fine.
Exactly.
But you have to be willing to really. It's what the tap dance of the universe. You have to be willing to immediately go, oh, all right, I get it, I can do it, I'm realigning, I'm there. And that's required at every moment.
It's very required. It's not a time of ego preference, that's for sure.
There's no ego preference involved, is there? No, it's just, as I always say, I'm signed up for the program, just put me wherever you want me. I'm willing and able, and I'm here. All of us look at situations and we have multiple responses, some of which are, well, I'm not sure I'm worthy, or I'm not sure I have the skills, or I don't know if I know how to do that, or, your ego comes in and wants to protect you. And believe me, if you're here on the planet, you're worthy. If you're here on the planet, you have the skill. If you're here on the planet, apply your will to the highest frequency you can find, because that is what's being required of all of us right now.
Yes.
What the inner is the outer. It's a flow. It's integrating. It is harmonizing, and we are entering unity consciousness. We are entering it. Within that framework, as we were just talking about, structures will fall and crumble. Things will change.
Absolutely.
The order of things will not look the same now as it looked 5 minutes ago or 10 years ago. And we've certainly seen that. We've certainly seen that around the globe with, structural changes in cultures and economics and, physicalities and real estate and you name it. Everything is in flux and flow right now. And we have to get comfortable with that.
That is such a good point, because that's something I always highlight quite often is the dismantling.
Yes.
Is that a lot of people don't really recognize when their life is being dismantled that it's a direct part of their spiritual development and progress, and that the planet is requiring that. Meaning we're on an ascending planet. If you're living and breathing on planet Earth and your number's been called, and you know who I'm talking about out there if you're listening. If your number's been called, there's no going back. You can't just go, oh, I'm not going to do this. If you do that in moments of, when you say, when you're in moments of pity, I can't take it anymore, get me out of here, you have to correct yourself and come back into balance. Again, we agreed to participate with this consciousness, and it is an amazing time. Again, there is such amazing opportunity of witnessing new creations being birthed in front of our eyes. In fact, we're participating with that. It's incredible. Yes. At the same time, I would say the hardest thing is that suffering element, of which one of the big components is dismantling.
Yes.
People's lives and relationships, whatever it may be. It can be the ending of significant relationships, such as divorces, things like this. The ending of careers, the ending of your monetary empire, going into bankruptcy. It's really hard to look at somebody who has made, let's say, wealth or legacy in the financial world and has understood how to do that and say, as they're undergoing bankruptcy, oh, this is your spiritual development. Yeah, right. Be happy because you're undergoing this process of literal development, not only as a human being, but coming into a spiritual progression as a part of this developing consciousness on planet Earth. But yet it's very painful for the person who's leaving those structures behind, that old paradigm, and coming into this more spontaneous, in the now moment, learning how to connect in the now moment and feel the synchronicity of events. And we all get there if we just pay attention to the process. You know, I know some of us get mired in pain. Some of it's not fun at all. But when we recognize and we can embrace the evolutionary context, I think, again, it's so helpful, because then you're not reduced to this, why did this happen to me?
Right.
You know, and what did I do wrong? And the issue is you didn't do anything wrong. It's your time. It's time to move away from that old structure that was reinforcing an old identity, and your spirit has said, enough.
Yeah. Well, you're done. You've done that experience,
yes.
Whatever it is. And so now new experiences is coming into alignment for you, and who knows how brilliantly helpful you may be to other people going through this experience, or what a requirement is now, you know, cast before you for you to utilize your skills now, you know, cast before you for you to utilize your skills and your wisdom and your heart energy. We just don't know until it evolves. But the destructuring of things is very painful. When things fall apart before they come together is a very difficult time period. And certainly we know personally, and amongst all our spirit family here, many of us know what that feels like. And before we can see the wisdom of the new experience or see how the new experience is going to be structured, we have to dwell in that limbo period.
Yes.
And at those times, the only thing sometimes that we can rely on is our breath and our God consciousness. And that is, in the long run, all there is. Ultimately, is that energy. And sometimes that's our go-to place. And one of the things that really helps us to get through these challenges and these times is literally to rely on our meditative skills and techniques, to go into the God space, to go into that consciousness, and to be completely still, to go to that still place.
Absolutely. I think it's the only way you can maintain sanity in this energy. Is there needs to be some kind of consistent meditative or mindfulness. So whether it's the Zen, you know, just letting go of the mind, knowing how to turn that off and come into stillness, or use meditation, whatever it is that brings you into yourself in the stillness, is a tool that will keep your sanity.
Exactly.
in the midst of some really surreal and wild experiences.
Right. Yes. All religions, all philosophies have spoken for eons about prayer and meditation, and we're finally really having an opportunity to utilize that in a very powerful way at this time period, because we want to go to that still point.
Yes, absolutely.
From there is where the new creation emerges, and the new birth of the new energy. And so all of us want to go there. It's great to go there in groups. It's great to, you know, get together with friends and do something meditative, something focused, something peaceful and still, because it increases and enhances the energy. And certainly do it individually on a daily basis. It's really imperative to do that, to keep ourselves in the resonance of our highest frequency.
Absolutely. And I think another important point is that there are waves of us that are both in the Lightworking crew, the Starseed crew, or the 3D crew that may not understand this context, that are really having physical issues at this time. The frequencies are so radical in terms of their shift, in terms of how the consciousness has existed. Consciousness is energy. So when we're talking about spirit or consciousness, just put energy in its place. As well. What is consciousness? Yeah, exactly. It's an energy signature, it's instruction sets, it's frequency. These frequencies, these energetic spectrums that are exposed to our planet at this time have never been here before. So our bodies, our physical biologies are undergoing some really profound changes. And some of those changes, to the uninitiated, to those that don't have context, it can be kind of scary. You know, the body's doing things that it didn't used to do, and nobody's talking about it out there. All we have is, of course, what Western medicine tells us, which is, you know, highly ineffective in treating us as an energetic organism, as an entire multidimensional being. I think the stillness and the meditation is also critical to bring harmony to your body, to bring your body in alignment, to reconnect between your spiritual self, your spiritual selves, the energies that are attempting to come into balance or in connection or communication with your physical self. A lot of these symptoms are not only just transformational type of symptoms, they're also, I think, sometimes when you're not listening, when you really need to get quiet, you really need to rest, you really need to listen to your body. Your body needs rest and recovery and meditation or stillness or whatever else it may be telling you. And at this point, I think that's really important that we must also listen to our body, because these changes that are happening on the planet are also extremely impactful to the cellular biological system. And for some of us, we're going to be seeing a lot of thing that is labeled as illness or disease, and it's not necessarily that. It means come in within your own being, get in contact with your body, contact with the consciousness and wisdom of your body. Start developing that communication, because a lot of people are in fear when this happens. And if you go to the doctor, they're going to go, I don't know what's wrong with you. So it's really important as well that this meditative time is understanding the crucial nature of it, not even just your mental and emotional, spiritual sanity, but the necessity of your body. Spiritual awakening is occurring, and it's very physical. It's not just something out there that's happening. It's happening to the physical body. And this may manifest an array of symptoms. So have you been seeing that too?
Oh, yes, quite extensively. As a matter of fact, I was going to say, one of the things I've really noticed is that people are beginning to learn to use their bodies as a barometer of what's happening in their lives. And if we don't get enough rest or we don't listen to our body will just shut down and go, oh, you don't want to rest? Well, let me give you this little thing for a week. Or you don't want to rest and heal me in the way I need? Well, have this little cold or whatever, that kind of thing. So the body is really responsive to the energetic field and has become a barometer. So we need to learn how to read that, as you were just saying. We need to really appreciate what our body is telling us and how there is no distinction or wall between spirit and physical. We are literally physicalizing the spiritual in this time frame. We are the energy of the God consciousness in our being, in our bodies, in our entire multi-leveled expression of our energy field at this time. Yes, I've definitely noticed many people having a lot of physical symptomology or body issues that get resolved as soon as the change is occurring, as soon as the frequency's been adapted to in some fashion, or as soon as the issue's been healed. Everything starts to come into integration, and we come into coherence. Frequencies come into some kind of balance. We come into a field of peaceful awareness. And so that's really happening now.
Yes. Well, I'm also seeing, tremendously that imbalances that manifest in the physical body have many times a heavy ancestral component. And that a lot of us here on the Ascension pathway, those of us that are light workers that can participate with it, I think it's really wise also to know that your body is a composite total of your family of origin, and that a lot of us in these physical bodies are carrying memories and connections that go beyond just this identity, whoever we are in this incarnation. So some of these imbalances may manifest as blockages, energy blockages in the body that need to be resolved, that with meditation you can address.
Yes.
Certainly that's one thing about the side energetic synthesis as a part of what I provide is meditations for that purpose. A lot of people go, well, I don't know what to say. How do I address this? When you actually can participate with this an intention, you don't have to listen to my voice. This is just a sample for people to follow until they have their own voice. Because again, you can state it in your own voice, in your own intention as you meditate, that you want to identify and locate in your body any kind of ancestral blockages or blockages, period. Identify what those blockages are so you can help your body and your consciousness together unify and release these patterns from the past. They can be in the mental body, they can be in the emotional body, they can be lodged in the physical self, and they can be spiritual trauma. all of those different layers. Part of the tool that's being developed in ES is a system called Hieros Gamos, and Hieros Gamos is being developed by the Guardians as a part of giving a tool for that. One of many tools. We can do this on our own, or if we need a manual and a guideline to help us as a roadmap and pathway through our spiritual body so we can learn how to do this. We all have the capacity and the power to do it. A lot of us don't have context. We don't have the tools. We don't know, really? I can do that? Yes, you can. Everything is energetic. Everything is conscious. Everything has intelligence and a blueprint. If you intentionally desire to connect with your blueprint or your intelligence, it's done because you said so. I know it's hard to believe, but again, as we develop our consciousness, as we become more spiritually aligned, this is something that becomes a natural progression of our spiritual ascension also, is that we recognize when the physical body is its own intelligence. Like a lot of the times now at this point, I'll talk to a body parts, I don't remember doing that, like 10 or 20 years ago, where I would go, hi, liver, how are you? I can see, I can feel my liver is, clogged, and I'll have a conscious communication. First of all, registering something's not right there. There's something clogged up in my liver. I can feel it. My liver's not happy. And usually if I connect in through meditation, I'll get a lot of impressions.
Right.
Or little intuitive pieces. Again, it's not somebody writing out a paragraph of sentences, which is extremely detailed, but all of us now that are seasoned on the, starseed ascension path know spiritual consciousness is not linear thought. It doesn't come this way. You get intuitions and impressions, and these impressions guide you into larger understandings. And as you develop a trust with your own intuition and your own spiritual ability, meaning the ability to feel, because that's what it is, it's feeling what it feels like. What does it feel like right now? Ask your liver, how does it feel like right now? And that's an interesting byproduct of the ascending process, is you start to recognize, like as an example, I appreciate and love my body so much more than I used to, because I really recognize it now as it's a separate wisdom and intelligence, even though it's part and parcel of who I am. It's the vessel I'm using while I'm here as a part of the ascending vehicle. At the same time, it has its own wisdom. It has its own consciousness at the elemental level, and learning how to communicate with your body, I think at this time, will really help a lot of people to get beyond any fear they may have about ascension symptoms. Because some of them are pretty surreal. I mean, when you're undergoing it, you're like, what was that?
Yeah. Yes, and as we were saying earlier, it's imperative to have consciousness of our physical vehicle. It's imperative because it is an expression of the frequency and the emanation of our own consciousness into physical form. So every body is unique. Everyone has a body, and everyone is learning to read the signs from the body, which is again why it's so important to go into that still point, that still place, so that we can hear. You said something wonderful about intuition. We need to learn to read our intuition so that we know how the messages come. It is very subtle. And it comes in that stillness. It comes in that quiet place, that deep place, where all of a sudden you just get this little inclination like, oh, I should do that, or I think about that person, or I could call that person, or maybe I should do this. Oh, I thought I was doing that. No, I think this is what. It's that really subtle, small voice with a powerful message. And we need to learn to read that so that we have the spiritual guidance, because that's how it comes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think too, I notice a lot of people have to develop the skill to the point they trust their own guidance.
Yes.
I think the trusting part is definitely part and parcel of the emotional clearing, and the negative ego clearing also, like really getting in check with what belief systems you have, what kind of thoughts you're having. Because for me as well, I see this over and over again. Fear and self-doubt is like poison
Totally.
to a light worker, especially.
Totally.
And that is really propagated a lot, as well as interference. You know, a lot of interference comes to breed self-doubt.
Well, that's one of the factors on the planet. One of the ways of manipulating and keeping consciousness suppressed is to plant self-worth issues in the
Definitely.
human heart. And somehow, just generically, being on the planet, we have had a sense of separation from God. We have had a sense that if we're in a body and we're on this planet, what happened to God? Where did God go? God is in each and every one of us. We are the emanation of that consciousness. And we have to integrate that awareness into our being so that we know we are worthy, we are here, and we are the emanation of love.
Absolutely. And obviously, too, in my personal work, I'm very passionate with my communication with my guardian team's experience. In understanding also, I really feel the soul wound and the pain that a lot of us are carrying in the elemental body, I mean the physical self, is a history that we don't remember.
Correct.
We don't remember, first of all, who we are, but we also don't remember that this planet had been invaded, meaning that there's something that has come and taken over the fields of our planet and the use of the resources of our planet in such way that there's a part of us that unconsciously knows this and feels in pain by that event, but there's no memory of it because the memory has been erased or taken or destroyed. And this is something I think that really breeds also the lack of self-worth.
Right.
Because if we don't know who we are, if we're in identity conflict, we don't know we're from the stars, we don't know that every single human body walking around here is actually from the cosmos. None of us are actually indigenous to this planet in terms of we were seated here and that was it. Each of us have pieces of information or consciousness, which are literally cosmic consciousness, and none of that is remembered at this time. And I think that's a part of the pain, the wound in our heart, in our being, in our soul, in not remembering that.
Yes.
Until we remember who we really are, we're in pain, we're split. We don't know how to resolve that part of ourself. So in society today, without that spiritual development and of course that context, the history we've been given is really a false history that was written by the victors of war.
As always. Right?
As always.
Yes.
So, and history is destined to keep repeating itself until we learn from our mistakes. So we're really at that crux, we're at that point of change. Where, you know, on one level, it's really exciting because we're in uncharted territory. At the same time, there is no way to know what is going to happen as we're in this incredibly evolutionary time, but also tumultuous time as we undergo this together as a mixture of vast consciousness, all here in physical forms, playing out these roles, these archetypes, these memories. We all have that memory as a part of the human race, but so many of us don't remember. We don't remember where we came from.
Right, exactly. And that deep essence of fragmentation is so destructive to the human soul.
Yes.
It's a sense of not enough. That's where the self-esteem issues come from, the sense of I'm not enough. Why am I not enough? Why do I feel fragmented at some level? And so one of the other tools that we talk about frequently is using your body to recognize the truth when you hear it. You hear this discussion that we're having and you think, wow, that sounds, something in there registers as truth. Something in there, my soul recognizes something in there. So again, another tool that we can utilize is the physical being and the etheric being, and it all goes together, all the different layers and levels of the body, as a tool to recognize the truth, because you'll get a vibrational quality that speaks to your heart. And that's a really important skill to develop and to acknowledge and to expand. It helps each of us get through the transformational days that are upon us here.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think too, in awareness of this larger context, we can also be aware that our nervous system has undergone a particular trauma that puts us in shock. There's on planet Earth today, most all of us have operated until we really meditate and learn how to balance our neurological system through breath or meditation. Because again, the stillness is not just the benefit of quieting your mind, but it's also about resetting your nervous system, which is absolutely critical at this time, because the nervous system on planet Earth, when we understand planetary grid, planetary brain, and we're a part of the nerve cell of that planetary brain, our nerve system, our central nervous system, is getting messaging from the planetary brain. If we can't identify that messaging as life-affirming. Usually one of the words I will use in terms of what is organic to your being and what is inorganic. So what is life-affirming, what is anti-life. If you can't identify that messaging that you're receiving in your brain and nervous system, this will also disrupt your intuition, your sense of you won't know how to feel. So this is also an issue we have on planet Earth in understanding that there is trauma at the nervous system level. The sympathetic nervous system activates the adrenals, which pump adrenaline into the bloodstream. This is the state that most humans exist, especially in Western society. I think, well, probably everywhere at this point. With the energies on planet, I think a lot of us are feeling that sense of anxiety. We were just talking about that earlier, heart palpitations, something's pushing me, I don't know what it is. This is the impact of frequency upon the aura.
Right.
These energies are attempting to translate and find a way to move through the auric system, the meridian structures, the exotonial lines, the various channels that are in your body that are starting to actually activate that were not active before. So you're undergoing all of these shifts and changes as these new energies come in. So also, so many of us have a sense of trauma from being on planet Earth at this time and addressing that trauma from a point of soul disconnection, when we're not connected to our true essence, our soul. We're traumatized. Of course we are. It's a part of us. And this is now, we have the opportunity now to be returned back into, like you said, home or cosmic consciousness, the soul self, and how that integrate with the body. So how to treat yourself with loving kindness, to understand that some of this is very much like post-traumatic stress syndrome. There's a shock factor as the neurological system is coming online, and we're starting to awaken to a sense of reality and understanding where we came from, even just this incarnation. But we can, in our work, we go even further. We go thousands of years looking into timelines and finding other times and spaces, other identities that we have been, both individual and collective. A lot of our work today, I know, is grid work, which maybe we'll talk about that in our next discussion because it's more complex. But, understanding that there is a sense of trauma when the neurological system and the brain is receiving messages from a shocked and traumatized nervous system. The nervous system is being hijacked with a messaging that is exerting a type of stress. Again, this is the sympathetic stress that's being placed to create shock in the person. And this can be rectified through meditation. Again, I don't want to be like, it's all about meditation, but it is. Because meditation will actually rebalance the parasympathetic balance with your sympathetic system, so the body can start to regain balance from that stressful state of shock and trauma that's exerted on the messaging of the central nervous system, which, by the way, is what the mind control and the negative alien agenda is about. If they exert that artificial control on a stressed nervous system and we're spun out from that level, we're very easily controlled from that level. Coming back into meditation and stillness, resetting our nervous system, which we can do with breath. I know the medical system hasn't told us this, but we can through our breath, through meditation, through learning how to quiet your mind. You can actually shift the balance of your brain chemistry and your central nervous system in the way your central nervous system actually exerts messaging to the brain impulses. Because remember, the brain is like radio receiver. receiving impulses and thoughts. So our issue is with ourselves. What thoughts are we receiving? What station are we turned into? And through our meditation, through our breath, through our devotion to our spiritual being, our energetic being, whatever that is for each one of us. And maybe just to be the truest and most authentic human being that you can be, whatever that is.
That's fabulous.
That's it.
Yeah.
And there is no good or bad about how you arrive at that goal, but the peace and the fulfillment and the connection that you gain from that. And generally, I think the most efficient and rapid way to get there is truly daily meditation and practice.
Oh, yes. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And we might mention at this point that we are in a 12-dimensional world. We talk about chakra balancing in the body and all that sort of stuff. Well, there are 12 chakras because we're in a 12-dimensional world. So everything you're speaking about exists and permeates through 12 dimensions. So we have this consciousness that we are now working to expand and open in each of those dimensions, each of those bodies, each of those frequencies. So this work and this focus and meditating and coming to that still God, Goddess consciousness is imperative because it aligns us with the frequency of divine consciousness at every level.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think we all know the 12-dimensional shield.
Oh, you've got some tools. I must say that you have some of the most expressive and wonderful and useful tools on the planet right now.
Oh, well, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
Totally true. And you know that. And as I said, I refer to you as the download queen because you bring so much valuable information for us all to benefit and to utilize, which is really, really exciting. I mean, my work is specifically healing the emotional bodies, the emotional memory and the triggers and, bringing us into alignment and resonance and coherence with higher frequencies. And your work is invaluable in what you bring to the planet in terms of tools and awareness and understanding of the cosmic and galactic architecture.
Well, thank you so much. I think really my passion is about being an advocate for light workers, for starseeds on our planet that really didn't have that source.
That's right.
Certainly through my own direct, to be honest with you, very painful. We've talked about that. I mean, you were right there with me, actually, through the losing of the hair and the bleeding sores and all of the ascension symptoms and Kundalini awakening things that went on. I was having such...
It was intense.
It was intense. It really was. And, undergoing that experience directly, certainly... I know there's many more of us on the planet that are having some level of that same experience. I remember what it felt like. Mm-hmm. It was very isolating. It was very devastating. I had no one to talk to. I didn't know who I could talk to that wouldn't put me away if I opened my mouth about some of the things I was actually seeing because I was being contacted by extraterrestrials. I was seeing all kinds of phenomena in the astral planes and multidimensional worlds. And again, there was not the context I have today. So this is, again, how we've got here. We've got here through the experience. This is through the direct experience of multidimensions. Yes. And I really want to impart that context of support for our family.
Yes, definitely.
Who I know is undergoing such an intense and challenging time with some of the things we experience here.
Absolutely. Yes, it's just wonderful to be here, to be able to communicate with our family, to get the information out there, and to share our experiences with each and every person out there who has had their own unique experience in this same pathway and with whom we feel a great deal of love.
And appreciation. Yes. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here. I know it's rough, but you have two people over here that really love you and appreciate you. Thank God you're here, because then we're not here by ourselves.
No, there's an entire light-working family here now, which is really exciting and really wonderful.
It's true.
Yeah, with great experiences. And everyone's journey to this spot is unique and individual, and everyone winds up here together, which is really exciting and really lovely, and for which I am deeply, deeply grateful.
Oh, thank you. Me too. And again, before we sign off, because I'm getting that feeling,
Yep,
we're probably
done.
tuckering a lot of people out from listening, but I wanted to thank you for being willing to participate like this
goodness.
here today. And we hope that this has been supportive to some of our Lightworker and Starseed family. But also because this is on my channel, Energetics, and this is Anne, I wanted you to share where people could contact you because you do private sessions, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. My website is spirit-vision.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
It's been a great pleasure, one of my all-time fun things to do, and I look forward to our next session.
Oh, thank you. Signing off, thank you so much for joining us, and our heartfelt blessings to each and every one of you. Bye for now.